Hi, Barry and Linda. My name is Zach. I'm going to be going over the ClubRunner dues and billing webinar. Today, we are basically going to be covering the majority of dues and billing. So how you manage and track member dues, create invoices, collecting payments with our online e-commerce module, and how you apply those payments to people's accounts if they didn't come in through directly through the e-commerce module. So to get started here, let's see. So I just wanted to give that for you guys. This is going to be the official start for my colleague here. So give me just a moment. Hi, my name is Zach. Today we are going to be going over the dues and billing functionality and some of the enhancements for that in the ClubRunner dues and billing module. So I'm going to go ahead and get started logging into our demo website here. All right, so now that we've logged into the members area, we can go into the organization tab. After clicking on the organization tab, we are going to move over to dues and billing. Dues and billing is really self-contained. The only way to enter dues and billing is to have a minimum of access level of 50. So executives, presidents at level 40, and site administrators at level 30 all have full and complete access to the dues and billing module. Level 60 members and level 70 members can really only see their own information, not this global overview. So the first thing we're going to start with today is the settings for dues and billing. This is where it's a little bit of prep. It's something you will very rarely check, but I'm going to start with it first today because it is one of the important thing. Like, you want to make sure everything here is set correctly so you can start creating your bills, sending your invoices, making payments on people's accounts, etc. So I am going to go into configuration settings here, and I'm going to confirm that all of this information is correct. So as you can see, this is our office address. This will show up on all of our invoices. We can also set our currency value. We're having it US dollars because we're using a Sage payment account for our US customers on this account. When I create new items, so when I'm creating new items in the dues and billing module, it's going to apply the amount to nobody on this account by default. Instead, I'm going to choose it to all members. And then to display. So for example, if you want to be able to invoice your X members, if you want to be able to invoice your honorary members, you don't have to have these. A lot of clubs never touch those users, so they don't bother doing anything with them. The last option here is payment comment required. So when someone makes a payment through the integrated payment system, you can require that they enter a comment about their payment. We have our tax rates, so if your locality does require that you guys charge either a local tax, so something like state sales tax or county-based sales tax if you're in the US, or here in Canada we have a harmonized sales tax where both the federal and the provincial governments have a tax and it's set under one rate. Here in Ontario it is 8%, or it's 5% for the federal tax and 8% for the state tax, which makes a total of 13%. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We've made all of our changes, and we've also set the payment method to Sage. So this means that we're going to use this Sage merchant account. Some clubs do have multiple payment accounts because maybe one is for events, one is for the foundation, and one is for other such things. It's totally up to you guys which account you use, or if you don't have the module, you won't be able to take advantage of this specific option. So moving along from here, we're going to return to the billing home because I'm going to create a brand new bill. So I'm going to come over here and do create new bill. So the first thing is the name of the bill. Comments show up on the actual invoice themselves. Please, payment check. I'm going to spell it the American way. Please make your check out to ClubRunner. Of course, if you guys had like banking details or anything else, you could obviously put a lot of that information. There is a limit on this, the comments, so you can't have like a small novel here, but you definitely have enough for like extra address or, make sure to send your check to ClubRunner, mail it certified, you know, basic stuff like that. So let me go ahead and save. And then, there's this one last thing here, which is due date. So this is the date that the invoice is technically due. It defaults to 1 month in the future. So now that I've created a bill, this has created a place for me to invoice members, but has not actually charged anyone yet. And it will not charge anyone if there are no line items on the invoice. So I'm sure everyone watching the webinar right now at some point or another has received a bill in the mail from a company, and it usually had services, X, administrative fees, Y, total cost, Z. That's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to start first with dues. So like membership dues to the club, for example. So we're going to do a semi-annual invoice. So this is going to be the last 6 months. So for this, our example club, we charge $10 a month for our dues. And we have 6 of them. So for the quantity here, we're going to do 6. Invoice item is going to be dues. This is the item that they're paying for, and the unit price here is going to be $10. With that, it's, so it's 6 times 10, which gets us 60 plus tax will make it up to $67.80. Now, for example, Joe Abby here joined 3 months ago, and we don't need to charge him for a full 6 months. So we will adjust him to 3. So as you can see, his line has updated. He is getting a quantity of 3 at a unit price of 10, and he now owes $33.90 instead of $67.80. On the other side, Vivian is a senior active member in this case, and we charge them less membership dues, so let's just say it's $7.50. So now the amount will adjust. She's still getting billed for 6. She's getting billed at a unit price of $7.50, and it still applies the sales tax, so it comes out to $50.85. Another option is if, let's just say, Test App is brand new. He just joined. He did come to a couple lunches, and we need to charge them for him, but he hasn't joined the club yet. We can bill him at 0. So 0 across the board is 0. We can also change the price to 0. For attendance app here, and you can see that they'll still be charged 0. And for Bob Baker, I don't want this item to show up on his invoice. So the difference between app test, app attendance, and Baker Bob here is that both app test and app attendance, these items will show on their invoice. For our test member here, he's being billed for 0 items at $10, giving him a charge of $0. Attendance is being charged for 6 items at no cost, which is also $0. But for Bob here, down at the bottom, Bob will be charged $0 for 0 items. We've unchecked his checkbox. This invoice item will not, this line item will not show up on his invoice. Anything else that we do that includes will show up, but it won't show up for Bob. So you always have the option to customizing per member. And as you can see, we have a lot of members. So we're lucky that most of our members fall into this category. Of course, you can tab through this and make all kinds of changes. And the most important thing here is that if you manage the values at the top, it does apply downward. So let's just say I want to make this $11 now. You will see it has reset all of our people with the exception of Bob because we unchecked Bob. So I believe this was 3, and I believe this was 0, and then this was 0. And we didn't check Bob. And I think Vivian was $7.50 is what I decided. So now we have all of our customizations in place. We have all of our membership dues being charged appropriately. There is a save button both at the top here and all the way down at the bottom. So now we have one line item. Quantity of 6, description is dues. We're billing it to 144 members, and the total money amount received by the club should be $10,529.34. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to charge members for their meals. So since this is a biannual or semi-annual bill, we are going to do, let's see, we have 4 meetings a month times 6, so that's 24. And then these are meals. Unit price, we'll do $25. So once again, the pricing are all here. So, Joe only joined 3 months ago, so instead of 6, so he needs half of this amount. Vivian gets a discount at $20 per meal instead of $25. And then, Bob, Bob did come to the meetings, but we aren't charging him for other stuff, so we can leave him included. But, if Carlos here wasn't coming to the meetings or didn't get charged for meals or whatever, we can remove him from the entire process. So let me go ahead and hit save. So then as you continue adding more and more line items, the invoice costs continue to increase. And you can pick and choose who, and you can have 50 invoice items and 25 of those are only to individual members. Like let's just say we had a fine for a member or happy bucks that someone had pledged to do, etc. Fine. Quantity of 1, $25. But the only person I want is Bob here. So I can unselect everyone. I can choose Bob. Bob will be the only member charged for this. Just to save. So you can keep iterating through each thing. So like, for example, if you wanted to charge your honorary members at a different rate than your active users, you could do that at one time as long as those people are on. Same thing with the corporate members. If you don't want to have 5 different sets of invoices in the system, you could keep doing this. So I did have a list of corporate members, so let me show you that, guys, real quick. Corp dues, $50. Quantity 6. All right, so I'm going to unselect everyone else. I am going to aggressively scroll down to the bottom of the page, check our 3 corporate members here, and save. So we have our dues, we have our meals, we have our fine for the 1 member, and we have our corporate dues for our 3 corporate members. So at this point, I am essentially done. I've created the invoice, I've billed the individuals and done all of that, and now I just need to check to make sure everything's good. So up until this point, nothing is on a member's profile. It is all self-contained in this invoice right now. So I can, to review this before we generate the invoice, we can go into the billing roster. And this is going to give us a one-by-one overview for each of the members that are in the system and what they're being invoiced for. And I'm really only going to look at the top because those are the members, and we can take a quick look at the corporate users too. And it will take a minute because we have 144 members to look through. So now that this is loaded, we can see that Joe Abbey here only has his dues for 3 months and his meals. Vivian has her reduced dues and reduced meals. App Test has a missing email address, so we couldn't email this to him, but you can see that his dues were billed at 0. At 11, like he had a quantity of 0, unit price of 11, so he doesn't owe anything for that. App Attendance has 6 at 0 price, and Bob here doesn't even have dues. He just has meals and fine. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see our 3 members who have their corporate dues. So now that all of this is filled out and we are very happy with our invoice, it is time to generate it. At this point, once we generate the invoice, you cannot go straight back and just get started on, you can't just come back in here and make changes. Once you've generated it, it is generated, and the only way to make a correction is essentially to copy it and delete the original one. And I will show you guys that. So let me go ahead and generate the invoices. So now we've generated this. You can see that the status is closed, so we can't make any more changes, but this now means that all of these invoice pricings have been added to the members, the amount that they owe. So for me, for example, I can go to my ClubRunner, my account balance, and I will be able to see all of the money I currently owe the club. So here is bill 123 right up at the top. It was created today. This is for a total of $752. I've made payments of $895. So I had a surplus. So I still owe, this individual member owes $107. If we go back to the dues and billing module here, we can now send these invoices out. So when I click View Individual Invoices, this is going to take me to the page where I can view and print invoices and email them to everyone, and I can download them as a collected PDF. So I do know that occasionally clubs do like to hand these out at meetings. The great thing is in here is you can check everyone, you can hit Download PDF, it'll give you a giant PDF, basically one page of every member, and you can print those out and hand them out at a meeting. So if we wanted to email everyone, we can select all, email selected invoices. We can leave this all selected. We can download the invoices as a PDF. This will definitely take a minute because it has to generate 160 some odd page or 150 some odd invoices. But once it's done, it will pop up there at the bottom. I can also view an individual invoice. So if I wanted to see just Abby's, Joe's invoice here, I can click that link. It'll open up in a new window. And I could also email just one, either by checking the box and using email selected, or using the email link. It will dispatch an email just to that individual person. As soon as the invoice loads, I will switch over to that to show you guys. Right now, it's just waiting to generate the big invoice. Oh, it generated the invoices there while I was typing up a response to a question. And as you can see, we now have one at a time, the invoice for every member and the content that it will receive. So you can see, just to show some stuff, Joe here, I believe this is his home address, and you can see that it's missing a line or actually I believe that is his work address. And Vivian, because she has her work address, it will go to, it'll also, she has her work address set as the preferred address, so it will show the business name. So now you've sent invoices out to 144 members, and they've started sending you checks. It's a good time to start doing payment entries. But if you wanted to get a quick overview of everyone's account statements, you can see that the club here actually owes Mr. Joey here $1,000. Vivian is owed $5,000. Most people have a positive outstanding balance, though. So if you had received a check from a single member and that they haven't started flooding in yet, you could do a payment entry. The payment entry screen is very straightforward. So I can select app attendance. I can see that $800 is owed to the club. I did get a check for $850. I don't know why he sent only $850, but I can put that in there. Payment by check, $850. Ref number, check number 000245235, whatever. So this is basically going to make a positive payment to his account, and after this is added, he will only have the outstanding balance of $28. So he still owes the club $28, but now, you know, we made his one payment. Let's say you have a whole slew of checks. You have 20, 30, 40, 144 checks. You can go to multiple payment entries, and this is brand new, relatively new, not brand new, probably late last year. So, for example, if a member has given you the exact dollar value, let's say, oh, he did give me the $878 check, you can click it. It'll copy the date. It'll copy the value that they owe. It will copy the transaction date of today, and then you can still do your comment. So check number 123. You can also do copy all if you want to, if you've really got everybody here, and then you can just go through and fill out the values. Let me undo that real quick. So I'll copy this one here, and we'll do app attendance, paid in cash at last meeting. So I'm just going to do 2 members, but you'd quite literally be able to do all 144 members here. And then we can do preview payments. What this will do is it will show us a preview so we can confirm all the values are correct. And here is our preview. So this looks good. We're happy with it. We hit submit. We are now posting these payments directly to people's accounts. So now we can see here on the account statement page that attendance app and test app both have paid in full and owe $0. Like the club doesn't owe them any money, we don't owe the club any money. But like let's say we had made a case, like for example, Vivian here is owed $5,000 and this can't possibly be right. It's probably because she's made a lot of payments in the past. And yep, $3,000 payment, couple $3,000 payments a couple of years ago, and we don't have invoices to do that. So I'm going to take the value that she owes. I copy it here. I am going to do a cancel transaction. Cancel transaction lets us do a positive or a minus, like we can either do a positive value or a negative value, and it will do what it needs to do. So, you know, if we add a positive amount, it will act as a payment to decrease the amount of money that they owe us. If we do a negative amount, it will act as a charge. So this is kind of how you undo an incorrect charge if it was done through here. So let's take one more step back. Let's do a credit adjustment. Let's accidentally give Vivian, I'm going to accidentally give Vivian another $1,000. So now I've done this misplaced payment. You can see here that it shows up as a credit note. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I really meant to, you know, maybe I meant to do a debit adjustment. So I'll do $1,000 again to Vivian. Now this only balances out, like, so I've done 1,000 as a credit adjustment, which gave her an up. I did 1,000 as a debit adjustment, but now we've only balanced out. She still owes us this extra $1,000. We should use cancel transaction to cancel the credit note. So I'm going to put 1,000 in here. I need to increase the amount that she owes us because we put $1,000 incorrectly on her account. And I will post. So now we've canceled the misplaced payment and the debit adjustment is standing. So we've canceled it out and now she only owes us $4,571. Let's say I just want to get this zeroed out for whatever the reason. I can run a cancel transaction again to bring her down to 0, for example. And I want to act as a negative payment because I want to decrease. I want to decrease the amount we owe her. So now we can see that Vivian is all zeroed out. So credit adjustments are things like if you need to return money to an account, debit adjustment if you need to increase the amount of money that is owed outside of an invoice, same thing for credit adjustment. Cancel transaction is useful for undoing something that you didn't mean to do. There isn't any delete for any of these credits, debits, or cancels. You can basically just balance your books. Now, as you've been going through all of this, Barry did ask us about exporting to QuickBooks, and we do support that. We support the older QuickBooks Desktop, and we also support QuickBooks Online. Basically, by default, when you arrive at this page, it will be everything, but let's say I only want to export the last months of payments. I can set that up here. It will show me only the transactions that have happened in this time period, at which point, now that I've filtered it, I can export to QuickBooks. When you do the export to QuickBooks Desktop, so this is the older version of QuickBooks, these accounts do need to match the accounts in your system. We just default to the default ones, but if for example, it wasn't undeposited funds, it was, if there's no S, maybe it's undeposited fund, not funds, you would want to change it or it won't import correctly. But assuming all of this matches, you can choose download, and it will, you will see that it gives you this nice transactions.iif file. This is a file format just for QuickBooks. Now, occasionally clubs either don't have QuickBooks or are using QuickBooks Online, but they still want to export this information. The export to QuickBooks Online does work reasonably well. It works very similarly to the QuickBooks Desktop. You would pick your dates, show transactions, and then export. So if we export this, you're going to notice that it gives us a zip file. Inside of this zip file, there are 3 CSV files. Excel will typically open these really easily, and at which point we can see all of the data in them. So that was credits. These are invoices, so the invoices, and as you can see here, the data that is exported is simply the amount owed. And then there are payments. So these are the payments that have been made into the system. Also useful for just if you want to export it to any other third-party systems, the QuickBooks Online works really nice for that. Barry, to answer your question, there is no importing from QuickBooks to ClubRunner. Data goes out. Data that comes in has to be done manually. So we covered configuration settings, and one of the things there was the online payment. I will circle back to that in just a moment. We do have a couple reports. So there is the debit and credit report. So this is basically you pick a start date, you pick an end date, and it shows you the data, the start balance, the total debits to the account, the total credits to the account, and the remaining balance. So right now it only goes to the first, but like for example, if I did January 1 to February 28, you will see that, App Test here started with $150. He had $728 applied to him, and he has $878 in credits, balancing him out to $0. You can also export this data into Excel. Monthly balance report. Similar kind of system. Basically, the first value here picks the day that you want the values from. So in this case, the first of the month, and this is the last value it will show. So if I pick March 3rd, for example, and I refresh, it will show me the start balances on each of the monthly dates, starting with this date and stopping by this date. So for example, if I wanted to see it in the 15th of the month instead of the 1st, now it starts on 11/15/2017, and it keeps going 30 days until this date. So if I wanted to get March 15th in here, I'd have to match it. The last system in here is the email archive. This shows past emails that have been sent out. The best thing about it here is the stats, so you can track and see the delivery rates. And I hate getting those because apparently there was an error with those stats. and there's one here too. I will check in with that with our team. But if you view the email, it's going to look like a bunch of mail merge fields, because that's exactly what this is. Every email goes out to a specific person. So the mail merge fields are really all that is shown here. The last thing that I will cover very quickly is how to pay your bill. So when you send these invoices out, if there is a payment account on file, members will receive that with a big, hey, pay now. So I'm going to go into my email history here and hope that I have a dues and billing invoice. I do. So this is exactly the email that I would have received from ClubRunner. And this link here says pay now. I can't click it because of the way the email history system works, but I'll show you. When you click pay now, it will bring you to a login page if you're not logged in, but it is the my account balance page. I just need to bring up the test credit card information here. I think I know what it is. So as you can see on this account on Sue or Sarah here, I still owe the club $107.58. So I am going to make a payment. Let's see. Let me enter my very long, very fake credit card number here. And I can submit. Obviously, since I'm logged in as a member, that's why all that information was there. So I put in a valid credit card, I made the payment, it applied it to my account, and we can see here there's this online transaction. And this is the kind of thing that you'll see and you'll be able to take advantage of. So the really nice thing with the dues and billing module is if you have our online payments and e-commerce module integrated, you will be able to let your members pay online directly for their the amount that they owe the club. And now you don't have to come and record those payments. So if we go back to dues and billing, we would be able to go to the account statements page, and we can see that here's Sue Sunset. She owes $0. So if I hit show transactions here, it will show just like I was looking at. This is the administrator's view, which is ever so slightly different. One thing I didn't touch on, but I will touch on right now, is since I'm at the administrator view, I can send a statement. The statement is the current Rotary year to date or whatever financial year your organization is set up under. So for Rotary clubs, that is from July 1 to June 30th. That's what this statement will always be. It's a running total to date. So on the 1st of July, you can see that there was a balance forward here, a previous balance of $895, and all the payments that have been made up until now. Actually, sorry, that was a positive balance of $895. Linda, I do see your question. There is no way, you can absolutely add optional payments to invoices. The thing is, there's no way to mark that payment as optional itself. So anything that you add to an invoice, such as a contribution to Rotary, if the member pays for it, it's great. That's not a problem, but when they choose not to pay it, they would still owe the money to the club. So you'd either have to issue them another invoice to remove the fee that they owed you, or you would have to issue them you'd have to add a credit or debit adjustment to balance them out. So I would really only for dues and billing focus on the things that are going to be required, not the optional stuff. I would only put optional stuff on an invoice if a member had specifically committed to paying it. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to go down the list here for Barry and Linda because I know that is pretty much the dues and billing module. All right, Barry just asked, when it comes to figuring out the number of meals to be billed, does this come from the attendance system or is it manual? It is manual. The attendance system doesn't tie into dues and dues and billing doesn't tie into the attendance system. Not all clubs charge for their meals after the fact. Some clubs make people pay for their meals at the meeting. So we haven't done any integration on that level where, oh, this member made it to 32 of the like he attended 32 of the meetings that in the last X period. Yeah, there's none of that stuff right now. So Barry, I just answered your question, but I'm going to unmute you. So if you have any other questions or concerns, you can let me know.
You may have to mute me back. I'm enjoying this webinar at Starbucks where it's very noisy.
I can hear that. Thank you, Barry. Linda, any questions?
No, I think that really explained a lot to me. One thing, when the payments are posted and we are exporting into QuickBooks, that will actually make that payment to that invoice in QuickBooks?
That is a really good question that I don't know the specific answer to. Unfortunately, I'm not overly familiar with I'm not familiar enough with QuickBooks to answer that affirmatively.
Okay.
Really what I usually tell people for QuickBooks is export your data, if you're using like the desktop version of QuickBooks, attempt to make a backup before you start, and then import your data. The most common issue that we usually see with the QuickBooks import is name mismatches. For example, and this is a common issue also in some other areas of ClubRunner. So in ClubRunner, it's Jim Smith, not James Smith, but in your QuickBooks, he's James Smith. So when you import the records, you'll have two James Smiths. You'll have one for Jim, one for James. At some point, to make sure the imports go smooth in the future, you want to make sure all of your names in QuickBooks match the names in ClubRunner. So that is typically the biggest issue that we hear about, at least with importing, and it's why we always tell people make a backup before you start if you can, and then run through the import process and see how it goes, because really your data is unique and different from all the other data, so it's always good to kind of just run a test on it and see how it goes.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions for me today, Linda?
I think that's it. I think I'm going to set up a test on my board members and see how it works with them before we have over 200 in our club.
Right. So the really great thing is if you create an invoice, just to kind of wrap up the webinar, when you guys create invoices, for example, my giant bill 123 here, let's just say I did make some terrible decision. One of the things that you can do is you can copy it. It creates a literal duplicate of the bill, quite a very literal duplicate of the bill, at which point we have an open, these aren't finished, but you can actually see that it's the exact same thing. So I could go and fix, let's say, oh, Vivian was supposed to get billed and the fine wasn't supposed to be taxed. I could go and fix those things. I could generate this invoice again and close it, and then I could delete the original one. The other side of that coin is the moment you delete an invoice, all the value, all of the amounts that they owe, disappear. So if you do, let's say you want to do a test, you just want everyone to see it, you can create an invoice, you could email it out, you could leave it on their accounts for your board members, for example, but then when you do the real bill, you could just delete that original invoice, unless they, of course, make payments for it or anything. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So once again, my name is Zach. I appreciate Barry and Linda joining us today. If you guys have any questions or concerns, you can reach us 24/7, 365 by giving us a call at 877-469-2582, option 2 for support. And Barry, I see your other question. You can always access it at clubrunnersupport.com. Our official hours for the office are 9 a.m. Eastern Time to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. But of course, if you leave us a voicemail or you send us an email, we will get back to you as soon as we can. I would say most of the time, if you send us an email, we get back to you within a day, sometimes sooner, depending on the load. Obviously, if you give us a call and you don't hear from us, leave us a voicemail. We try to always return those the same day if it's possible for us. Otherwise, we will get back to you the following day. Barry had one more question, which is, when sending reminder invoices, does it send only those with a balance due? So if you send an account statement, it will always send the whole statement regardless of values. If someone, like you can see here, even though she's 0, I could check everyone here, and it will email everyone. These people who don't have checkboxes don't have emails. But yeah, and if you send an invoice, it just sends it to them. It doesn't matter. Like, let's say you invoice a member and they'd already prepaid $150, and the invoice was for $105. They technically would have the club would still owe them the mismatched value, but the invoice will just show how much they were billed on those invoices. And if you resend an invoice, you're literally just resending that invoice. Typically what I would do is, if you send your invoices out and they haven't gotten back to you yet, or they haven't made those payments to you, I would definitely send them a statement email after that. So, for Bob here, I can go to dues and billing, organization, dues and billing, account statements, click into Bob's name, and then I can send a statement by email. So Bob will get this statement. So it will start back on August 23, 2017, and it will show that he owes all this money and he has made absolutely 0 payments. I don't know about the recording, Barry. I just do some of the webinars, but we are trying to get these out. So as long as this is fit for purpose and I didn't make any horrible mistakes that I don't know about, I would say probably within the next week or so. I do know that it is the busiest time, one of the busy times of the year for us. For example, I'm going to be at a Pets here, and the next couple of weeks will be a little bit more hectic. So if it doesn't come out within a week or so, it'll probably take a little bit longer than that. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. If either of you are going to be at the Mid-Atlantic Pets, which I don't think so, that's where I'm going to be this weekend. I will be in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, if you guys want to stop by my booth. Obviously, if neither of you live anywhere near King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, then that's absolutely fine. So have a great weekend and a great rest of the week, and I look forward to seeing you guys at our next webinar.